Right, hello. Another day of... Well, I'm going to keep the options open for people to submit their games, but I'm not going to be focusing on the Ludendare stuff today. I've just realised recently that I've pretty much been streaming about Ludendare stuff for I don't know how many days consecutively. So I think it's good to have a little break from that. It is very fun. I have definitely enjoyed it. But I had that issue a couple of months ago where I was just streaming way too much. And it was just like tiring me out quite a lot. Yeah, hopefully. I've got a few things that just in like my normal web design stuff I need to get on with as well. So it's going to be good to have a look here into Sveltekit and the new updates that have happened. It's basically a new, a fairly new JavaScript framework that was in development for quite a long time. And it finally went to a proper stable release in December. So it's version 1.0 now. There looks to be a few tutorials out and about around it. I have messed around a little bit with Sveltekit before, but while it was still in like pre-release stages, so things were changing every now and then. It was something I had to be aware of. Yeah, so just having a quick look. Yeah, since the 2nd, I think I've streamed every day about Ludendare. What day are we on now? We're on the 18th. 16 days in a row. I'm not sure. So that's gonna be something to yeah. Just get lost in it. So I think I found a couple of videos. Let me swap over to my dev screen. And we can leave that up in the top corner. So if people want to submit, there's still the option of how to do that. And current activity is going to be Sveltekit. Sveltekit. It does just fit in there. Although I'm not sure it's aligned, but that'll do. So, we might have a look at this Prismic course. Net Ninja is normally one that I go to for some good courses, but I don't think they've updated their course for the new Sveltekit as far as I've seen. So I imagine that's coming pretty soon. Because their old playlist for it down here is about a year old now. So there's been a fair amount of changes since that release. So can't go with that one. This one looks like it could be okay. They're making a Pokédex tutorial, which could tie in. Oh, yeah, sorry. Oh, it should be. When I speak, it should dip the audio level, but yeah, is that a bit better? Maybe my microphone needs a little boost. So there's a Pokédex tutorial on this. Maybe a little bit more. Well, let's boost our microphone a little bit as well. Let's see, that should be okay, I think. Yeah, so Pokédex tutorial would be quite good. No worries. Thanks for letting me know. Because that would tie in as well with our Pokemon Randomizer Challenge, and there's probably a lot of interesting little functions in this. And then there's level up tutorials, which do quite a few good ones. Although I'm not sure if this is going to be off of YouTube. It might be. Oh, this could be a free course. So this looks like quite a long course to have a look at as well. So we're going to be probably jumping around a little bit, trying to figure out which courses we like the sound of. Let's have a quick look at this Prismic course and see what we end up with. So we end up with a site with a few different options. And I think what we might do is try and do this almost from scratch. I don't know in my programming folder. Right, let me just check what's in each of these folders. It's been a while since I've used. Where's this? Desktop and programming. Let's make a new folder here. And let's call it Sveltekit 1.0. Open folder. Desktop. Programming. Sveltekit. And we're going to need the terminal. Right. Let's check as well if our extensions are installed. And do they need any updates? Or are they automatically updating? They look like they might have updated automatically. Change log, let's have a look. They seem to be okay. Don't have any options to... Oh, they're synced. Okay, so they are updating themselves. Cool. Right, I like the sound of this Pokédex tutorial, personally. So I think the way I'm going to do this is watch along some of the videos, probably a slightly faster speed. I normally watch things double speed, basically the first pass of things at least. And for tutorials, I'll watch them in double speed, and then I'll go back along, following along at 1.5 speed or normal speed, just so that I get the general gist of the video first, without having to let too much sink in. And then when you watch it again the second time, it's a lot more. Well, I find it a lot easier to pay attention to the important parts of the video. So apologies if you don't enjoy sped up videos, but we'll have a little bit of that to start with. And let's... I might as well just pop this in chat so that if anyone is watching along and wants to come back to this or watches the VOD, we'll have a link available if they want to follow the same courses. So I think with that, we're probably going to drop the Spotify really far down to something like that. I think that's still playing along in the background, but hopefully this will be the right level. And let's hear
about Sveltekit and Svelte 3. And to do that, we're going to be building a Pokédex app. So you can view all the Pokemon, you can catch
that feels
them,
okay, balances, but I might just have a quick listen in on my phone just to double check.
filter them by their region. You can view them individually and rename them. And you can look at all of your caught Pokemon. And if you want to, you can release some of them. You can follow along at js-pokemon.com or use the YouTube playlist.
Okay, that sounds good volume-wise.
How to follow along with YouTube playlists. And if you're following there, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And if you're following along at js-pokemon.com, then you can see we already have the lessons listed out. You can go into individual lessons, and you can go to the code branch and see what exactly we've done during the video. You can also sign up for the mailing list while you're there, and if I decide to go forward with the original plan, you'll be able to find the same app being built in other frameworks. So why would you want to use Svelte in particular? The short answer is that it is...
And just while we're doing this, actually, I'm going to turn off the Lunedale logo, and where's the Jam theme one? This one. There we go.
Really nice to use. So look at the developer satisfaction ratings. This is way better than current.
Yes, Svelte is really fun to use.
And this result holds up over multiple surveys. Here you can see Svelte taking second place to Phoenix, which is not a JavaScript framework. This is a larger survey here. Now, if you take these two data points, you might look at Svelte and think, wow, this is the most popular JavaScript framework. And it is among developers who use it. However, the downside is that that number of developers is still fairly small. And so here you can see, and sorry for the confusing coloring, I couldn't get it to display the ones I wanted. You can see that the number of Svelte downloads, this 414,000, is significantly less than React and Vue. We see a similar data point here, comparing the number of React developers and number of Svelte developers. Traditionally, this would have been a big problem. However, a lot of libraries are now going multi-framework. So this is auth.js, which used to be mixed-auth.js. You can see now it works for Sveltekit and SolidStart as well as Nix, and it's coming to the other frameworks soon. Same with the TanStack, which has TanStack Query, which used to be called React Query, TanStack Table, which used to be called React Table, TanStack Router, which React Router is something different, so I'm not sure what they used to call this, and several others which are still React only. So why does everyone love Svelte once they've used it? So it really boils down to two things. One, the developer experience is super nice. As they say on the front page, you can write less code, and you get to get rid of a lot of the state management libraries, which, for me at least, are some of the most painful parts of working in the other frameworks. You also get really fast code by compiling your code instead of shipping everything. And let's explain what this means, because this is also one of the reasons that a lot of people don't like Svelte on a philosophical level. So for the other frameworks, it says React here, but this applies to the other frameworks, I believe. So you have your components, you ship your components, and the engine browser. Yeah,
the main benefit is that you compile everything before deployment.
Using Svelte to a smaller set of JavaScript that runs directly on the browser. So instead of shipping your entire component and an engine and running it all on the browser,
so you end up just serving, well, on your server, you only are hosting like pure JavaScript files.
Historically, for some developers, because what gets shipped in production is not the same code that you write. So this is what gets shipped. And if you look real close, you can eventually find the code that you've written somewhere. Yeah, this somewhat resembles what I wrote, but yeah, it's definitely not the same. However, the now ship.
It's been optimized, that's why.
A question mark after it. That is what you wrote. So this gets compiled down to this. And this you can still inspect it and debug it. So here we can get all our variables there. So some people still may not like this on a deep philosophical level, but for a practical purpose, there's no reason not to use Svelte because of the compiler. And the number of people who don't like compilers, a lot of it's because of the popularity of TypeScript. The number of people who just can't stand compilers is going down. So if you're excited to learn Sveltekit, let's get started. There are two ways to do this. One, you go to js-pokemon.com, and you can click on the lesson you want to learn, and watch the video there, look at the code, and sign up for the mailing list so that you can get an email whenever new videos are released. The other way is through YouTube. You can go to this playlist and play through all of them, and be sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you can see when new videos are released. Either way, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. In this video, we're going to get started with Sveltekit 1.0. So first, let's go ahead and create our project. So we'll go ahead and go to
This looks okay so far, so I'm going to add this.
And we're going to use the latest version. So the latest version should be something like 1.0.1 currently. But if we do this, then it will actually not work correctly. We do need to use latest. Just know that if Sveltekit 2.0 is released, then some things may have changed. All right, so we'll hit enter, and it'll ask to where should we create the project. So we want to put it in JS Pokedex Sveltekit. All right, and now it asks, do we want a demo app, the skeleton project, or skeleton project for a library? If you were just exploring on your own, then the demo app may be the best, because you get to see quite a bit of Sveltekit being used. However, we're going to use the skeleton project, so that we can create our own code easily. All right, so we're going to use TypeScript, and go ahead and say no for ESLint and Creator, and testing. You can, of course, make different.
I wonder if we want to use TypeScript or not. I guess to follow along with this, we're going to have to. But I don't really use TypeScript normally. But it's worth looking into.
So we're going to go into our project folder. And
it seems to be the way that everyone's going.
When it's done, you will go ahead and run this command to open up a Git repository. And I'll put a link to my Git repository in the show notes so that you can see this at every stage. And then we're gonna...
So we will be following along with this in a minute, but we're just going to do a first pass just to figure out what's happening.
We have that open, and this is our hello world. And so we've got Sveltekit working. Now let's take a look at some of our starter code so we can see the very basics of Sveltekit. So let's go ahead and add some exclamation points here, and you'll see they are reflected over here. So it uses hot module we're loading in order to automatically reflect your changes. And here we have a plus page.svelte file, and we'll show you what these file names mean in a later lesson. But for now, notice that it's just HTML, and you can keep it as just HTML. Or you could do things like add CSS in a style tag, and boom, now it applies it here. And interestingly, it only applies it within this file. So you could have this h1 here and have an h1 somewhere else that is not red, even though there is no further specification input here. So that's pretty cool. And in addition to styles, you can also add in JavaScript. And you can do as plain old JavaScript, or you can make it TypeScript. And so here we can say const hello equals svelte friends, and like in TypeScript, it can be just like that, or you can specify it as string. And if you don't specify TypeScript and you try to do that, then your editor is going to complain. All right, and so we assigned this value to hello, and we can use this in our template. And so the interaction between the template and the JavaScript, so HTML with superpowers basically, then this is something that we're going to explore as we talk more about Svelte components. So it's super nice to have your JavaScript, HTML, and your CSS all in one file, but of course, you're going to want to use other files as well. Let's go ahead and put hello in a different file. And here we can put in a routes folder still, called hello.ts, and here we will export the hello. And then in our route, we will import it, and hit enter to auto import. Svelte is smart enough to know where stuff is stored a lot of times. And now we're accessing the variable from that's defined here in here. In the next video, we're going to show how to move beyond simple variables like this, and go through objects and arrays, and display those in the template. In this video, we'll release that.
Right, so far with that, that's nothing new from what I've done before. But we're just going to try and do the same setup. Just so that we're kind of following along a little bit here. So I think he just wants to do...
In this series, we're going to... but if then...
npm create svelte at latest. So that's slightly new. Actually, we also probably need to do some updates of our npm and our node versions, because it's been a few, well, probably a few months since we've updated these. What's the latest stable? Node LTS 18.12.2. What are we on? 16. Yeah, so there's a bit more progressed. I think we can just update it in terminal, can't we? Update node version. Windows. I always forget how to do this. NVM. We haven't installed NVM, I don't think, so we can't do that. Do we need to use NVM? Oh god, why so many pop-ups? Let me just sort this out so we don't get all the pop-ups. Is it privacy and security? Start Chrome, asking Google login. My account. Sign in with Google. I think that should be off. that should be it. Just so that we don't get the pop-ups all the time trying to prompt me to sign in with Google. Yeah, that's off on both. Cool. Right. Okay, so just download the latest version. That's normally the best way, by the looks of it. Typically LTS is recommended, yep. What about Windows? Yeah, I think we went long term. This should be alright. Do we need chocolatey? I can never remember if we want to include chocolatey or not. No, install. Do chocolatey. What does it do? Windows Package Manager, it manages packages. You don't need it in order to do web development. Having it makes it easier. By itself doesn't do anything regarding... So maybe it's worth having in. It's going to be a lot of looking up things in this stream, I think. Okay, let's include chocolatey. And while that's going, let's enable our timers about programming. Let's turn that one on. Okay, so every few minutes we'll get a stream elements note saying we're learning. Question specifically upgrade npm not node. If you want to update node, recommend using Chocolatey. Okay, what method? So this should update our version of npm as well when node is finished, which is getting to. I think this is Chocolatey. 3 gigs of space. Yep, that's fine. Cool. I think we let that run. The problem I always find with these kind of installs is that I do them so infrequently that when it comes around to doing them again, I was like, I can't even remember anything I did the first time around. So it's almost like relearning what you have to do each time, which hopefully now that I'm streaming it, I can just go back and watch the VODs again to figure out what I clicked on and what I accepted. And the other issue sometimes is that because we have tried some of this stuff before, when you try and reinstall versions, you get conflicts between which version you're using and stuff like that. So hopefully that's not the case here, but we'll see. We'll just have to work through it and see what happens. Okay, while that's installing, let's have a little look. So I'm going to do npm create svelte at latest. Figure out our settings, that's fine. And then we will be using Git. But that should be okay, that should all be set up already. And then this stuff is all the same. Cool, okay. How are we doing? Right, let's keep going.
Or skeleton project for a library.
Ooh, didn't mean to do it.
If you were just exploring on your own, then the demo app may be the best because you get to see and arrays and display those in the template.
Right, let's go on to the next, and then we'll come back.
About each blocks and how to work with objects in Svelte. All right, so let's go ahead and start off with our code from last time, and let's go ahead and add multiple variables. So we'll add a greeting variable, which is let's say hello, and we can put here. Good, that changes, and then for hello, we'll say this would be the name, so greeting to name, fantastic, hello to world. But sometimes we want to group these together in objects. So we'll say greeting object, and here the greeting is hello, and the name is world. So it's the same information as here, but it's in one object. We pass it along together. It's grouped together nicely, and we can access that in a template just using a dot here. There we go. Nothing changes because this is working just as it was before. All right, fantastic. Nothing really surprising here. Next, we're going to go over loops and arrays. So let's go ahead and do a data array, and we'll put in, let's say, for example, yellow and red and blue. You know, just 3 randomly chosen colors. So let's go ahead and use the each block to loop through all of these colors. And so what we're doing here is the blocks start off with a pound symbol, and then the name of the block, and then we have the array that we're feeding into each block. And then we say as, and this is the name that we use for each individual item in here. So we can use color like this, and it just says yellow, then red, then blue. We can put, say, a comma here. It adds the comma after each one. More likely, we're going to want to put in a div like that. You can also get the index, and here we go. So it just counts up from 0. And you can do simple JavaScript expressions in these curly braces. And so you can get the item, you can get the index. You can also set the key. The key is a bit of an advanced subject compared to the rest of the video, so we'll just do a super basic overview. So you can set it in parentheses after either just the object or the object and index.
Let's put this on another screen so I can keep track of it.
So if we had a second red in here, that wouldn't work. It's actually throwing an error. So it needs to be unique. And a lot of times you'll have an ID that does that, or combine different things. All right, so you have the key, and what's it doing? You can't see anything happening here. But what it does is it helps Svelte keep track of the different rows in this each. And it prevents some common issues. So it's never a bad thing to have a key, presuming you have a unique identifier. We currently do not. But once we have an ID, use the key with it every time. So now let's combine all this knowledge in order to loop through the Pokemon generations. So first let's go ahead and rename this from hello to generations. Then let's go ahead and paste in our generations data. So we have a type of generation. You can see we have an ID that is a number. We have a name that is a string. We have games that is an array of strings, and then a main region that is a string. And optionally we have an array of Pokemon species. All right, and so then we have the generations array. And if you're just using JavaScript, the only thing that'll change is you remove this type annotation and the type. And here it has all the data for the different generations. So let's go ahead and clear out what we have here and get the generations in there. So we're going to import the generations, and then we're going to loop through them. So each generations has generation. Then we'll go ahead and display the name. Then we'll do the main region, which be in generation.main region. Excellent. And we'll also go ahead and do the games. And here we're doing something a little bit different. So we'll do generation.games, and we could do that. Oh, that's nice. It automatically joins it with a comma. However, we do want a space as well. And so we'll join it manually and do a comma and then a space. All right, excellent. To finish this out, we'll go ahead and put in the key, which is the generation.id. And that is how we use arrays and objects in a Sveltekit template.
All nice and straightforward so far, I think, for what we've used before. Okay, I think that's done. So let's just check. Have we got version 18 now? Yep, cool. So then what was our command to update npm? So let's just check what version we're on now. I think we already checked this, didn't we? 8.19.1. So then if we do this, we should get a global install of the npm package. We should update us to the latest stable version. Okay, and we're now on, what are we, 8.19.1.931. Yeah, cool. So those versions are updated. So let's go back to our creating the app.
We're gonna get started with stuff.
And our command is teaching the folder that he's in, I think in, yeah. So npm create svelte at latest. npm create svelte at latest. Need to install the following updates, sure. Following packages. Svelte. So welcome to Sveltekit. Leave blank for the current directory, that's where we want to be. And we're doing a skeleton project. We'll use TypeScript to follow along. I think they did no to the linting options. No for all of them, yep. So those are okay. And that's it, we have our Svelte default package here. So the next steps are to follow along. That's what we're told in the terminal. Wonder if that's all okay. Just wondering if it's worth having like a zoom in option on this if we're using the terminal. Don't know how clear it is on stream to see. Just have a quick look. Oh, let's mute that. Okay, yeah, you can read. It's definitely possible to read what's on text. Cool. npm install. So that's the first step here. And then we want to do an initial commit to Git. And then our final command, npm run dev open. And that will run our, so this is just installing all the node packages that we need for Svelte. Okay. Do initial commit? What was the warning? That looks okay. And then we want to do npm run dev open. So that should open up a Chrome window somewhere. Where's it going to open? Here we go. And this is our demo app. So it's not doing much yet because we haven't made any changes, but we should be able to have this and this next to each other. Maybe a bit more space for the code. And in our source, root page.svelte, this is our core page. One of the things that we did was, let's just say this is homepage. .ts is going to be. We want to export const welcome, which is going to be a string, which equals welcome to the Pokedex. Cool. And then in page, we're going to save this. We're going to do a script tag here. Do I not have autocomplete? No, not a module. Yeah, just a normal script. Import main page. How did he get it doing with the autocomplete? Homepage.ts. Let's see. I want to learn how to do the shortcuts, so I'm going to try and get the same autocomplete going.
And I'll put a link to my Git repository. And this is our Git right here.
So where did we import from another page? Probably over here.
In our template, so have your JavaScript.
Importing from another file.
All in one file. But of course, you're going to want to use other files as well. Let's go ahead and put hello in a different file. And here we can put in a route source still called hello.ts. And here we will export the hello. And then in our route, we will import it and hit enter to auto import.
Okay, so he had to specify that it was called hello. So let's do a lang equals TypeScript, and then import homepage. Nope. What do we call the string? Welcome. Let's try welcome. Okay, that's it. So we need to know what the string name is. And then in here, we can just put our welcome, and hopefully when we save it, we should get our string come through. Perfect. So that's the first steps working. Nice and easy. And this is one of the main things I love about Sveltekit. It's just like, it's so easy to make changes, reload. The hot reload stuff is so good. I used to have to do stuff in Angular, and it's just so slow. You have to wait for builds every time, and I mean, there's probably ways that I could have improved my working environment that meant I didn't have to wait so long. But this just all makes so much more sense to me. Okay. Right. So that we're quite happy with.
In this video, we're going to list out the generations of Pokemon. And while doing so, we're going to learn about each blocks and how to work with objects in Svelte.
So do we have an option? Demo code. Let's find the arrays to use here. So in the source, in the roots page, we need to go to lesson 2, I think. And in our roots, we should have load.ts, Svelte friends. Maybe in lib. Types. Where is your Pokedex? Where's the generations data? Oh, demo 3. That might be why. Lesson 3, array object. Static. No, roots. Generations, there we go. This is what we're looking for. This information. Right, so instead of our homepage, or we can leave our homepage actually, I'm going to do a new file, which is going to be generations.ts. I'm going to paste this in. So all this is a list of the different generations. So we're exporting. So I think this is to do with TypeScript. So we're creating a type here of a new, basically a new class. So similar to Unity, we're making a class that has a set number of parameters. And we're exporting this array, which is an array of the type generation. And this is an optional parameter, but the other 4 parameters should be included. So the question mark is telling us that this is optional, doesn't need to be included. But all of the others are correct. So very similar to what we have to do in Unity, actually, for creating arrays, telling it what's it going to be an array of. And hopefully the rest of this all makes sense to anyone who wants to follow along. But feel free to ask questions if not. So then we save this and we can say import generations. And then we want our for each block here. So we'll leave the welcome up. And then if we set up an each block, so each generations as generation. So we're saying for each of the items in this array, call it generation for each iteration through. And then we can just do I think what they did was a div with generation dot name. So this should show us a list of the current generations, a list of the generation names of this array. So hopefully we go back to our demo app, which is here. There we go. We've got a list of generations. Might have to zoom in a little bit on this. Cool. Okay. So that all works completely fine. Let's also have this as a separate window. Just so we can have all of it going on at the same time.
All right, so let's go ahead and start off with our code from last time. And let's go ahead and add multiple variables. So
that was basically stepping through all of this. That's fine.
0. And
but the indexing stuff, right?
Also get the index. And here we go. So it just counts up from 0. And you can do simple JavaScript expressions in these curly braces. And so you can get the item, you can get the index, you can also set the key. The key is a bit of an advanced subject compared to the rest of the video, so we'll just do a super basic overview. So you can set it in parentheses after either just the object or the object and index. And it needs to be unique. And so if we had a second red in here, that wouldn't work. It's actually throwing an error. So it needs to be unique. And a lot of times you'll have an ID that does that, or combine different things. Right, so you have the key, and what's it doing? You can't see anything happening here. But what it does is it helps Svelte keep track of the different rows in this each. And it prevents some common issues. So it's never a bad thing to have a key, presuming you have a unique identifier. We currently do not. But once we have an ID, use the key with it every time. So now let's combine all this knowledge in order to loop through the Pokemon generations. So first let's go ahead and rename this from hello to generations. Then let's go ahead and paste in our generations data. So we have a type of generation. You can see we have an ID that is a number. We have a name that is a string. We have games that is an array of strings, and then a main region that is a string. And optionally we have an array of Pokemon species. Right, and so then we have the generations array. And if you're just using JavaScript, the only thing that'll change is you remove this type annotation in the type. And here it has all the data for the different generations. So let's go ahead and clear out what we have here and get the generations in there. So we're going to import the generations, and then we're going to loop through them. So each generations has generation. Then we'll go ahead and display the name. Then we'll do the main region, which be in generation.mainRegion. Excellent. And we'll also go ahead and do...
No worries, Rinks. Don't feel like you have to... The last game you played wore you out. I don't feel like you have to lurk or have my tab open. It's fine. It is appreciated, but it's all good. Don't worry. Last game you played, what kind of game was it? Did you see the? You heard me talking. Did you see the game that we tried to play? I think it was on yesterday's stream. Yeah, it was. The puzzle game. So it was all about like the different families performing a play for the gods, for the goddesses. I'm pretty sure you were still there then. But that was a lot. I enjoy that kind of thing, but I think we got one of the goddesses right out of the 5, and then I was like, I think I've spent a bit too much time on this. It's the kind of game where I think I'd really enjoy it, but I think it's just too long to play on stream. So I need to go back and give a little bit of feedback on that in a comment. But just saying, like, maybe for game jam versions, at least have like an intro level that's not quite as extensive. Because anyone who's playing this who's not keen on puzzles is just gonna dip straight away. Yeah, I think another way of presenting information would have been good. Even just a case of having, well, a lot of the time for the offerings they had each of the different families giving a certain number of like piles of hay, or not, it was like bags of grain and stuff like that. So they could have just had that as a picture with the different families and like what they're offering next to them, and that could be another way to do it. But it was fun. And so you saw Karanar's playthrough of some games, which I think included your one. So I want to go back and see the VOD in a minute. The one you're playing just now is called All for the Tuner. It had a music that was grating to me. It's possible it's because of tinnitus. I see. Yeah, I haven't clicked on this yet because it's only like 7 minutes ago. It was like right at the start. Right, yes. Was All for the Tuner by... Is it the one where you're a cat and you've got to go and upgrade your ship so you can get bigger tuna and upgrade the system? And like upgrade your boat and then you get... Yeah. I gave that a play off stream yesterday. I did a couple later on because I really enjoyed their previous game, which was Game Name for the last jam, which was like a game about doing a game jam, which I thought was really interesting. But yeah, I feel like I might have put my own music on when I was playing, or might have had my own music on when playing it. Right, let's see. Let's continue on here.
With the games. And here we're doing something a little bit different. So we'll do generation.games, and we could do that. Oh, that's nice. It automatically joins it with a comma. However, we do want a space as well. And so we'll join it manually and do a comma and then a space. All right, excellent. To finish this out, we'll go ahead and put in the key, which is the generation.id.
I think we'll hide our
objects and Sveltekit template. In the next episode, we're going to learn how to load
to /B. There we go.
or display all the Pokemon. And then in the episode after that, we're going to make it.
Lowered the volume at first because, you know, it wants to hear it. But after a small bit, it was driving me crazy. I was adding to... that's annoying, yeah. Yeah, I don't know how... I guess you need to have, like, different music options in case. Or you just need to have more people testing your game to find out where the issues are. I suppose for things that can be controlled by the player, music's not too bad. Because worst case scenario, for people who don't enjoy... It's like 8-bit but not done well. Oh, it sounded quite sharp. I see. Yeah, for games where people don't enjoy the music, you can always... Yeah. Well, yeah, at least they have the volume slider. But you can always just mute the site or stuff like that. But muting the music and playing your own music is always an option. But obviously it's not the intended experience of what the developers are trying to go for. But yeah, it's so difficult. I haven't really looked into music and sound effects enough. There's a whole world of accessibility for game devs that I need to really start looking into as well. Right, let's turn this into an H1. Let's do follow along here. So we're doing p tags. We're going to say games with generation.games.join. And we're going to join by a string of that. And then we're going to do another p tag. And this one is main region and generation. I hate that it's not picking out generation. Dot main region. Okay, and then in our version here, we update that. Looks good. We can get rid of our index here now. And then the only other difference we've got is we haven't given it the key here for our ID. So generation.id gives the key. Cool. So yeah, all looks good. And actually, this is before Generation 9, I guess, which came out recently. But I can't remember what the game names. Is it? It's not Ruby Sapphire. Violet and something, wasn't it? Not on point. Right, this looks all quite good so far. Violet Scarlet, that's it. Thank you.
In this video, we'll show how to fetch and display data from an API. So here you can see that we're looping over data, and it's coming from this mysterious page data, which is connected through the load function in page.server.ts. And here we're loading it from the Pokemon API. So that's what it's going to look like when it's done. Let's go ahead and build this step by step. We're going to use the Pokemon API at pokeapi.co. It is free and easy to use. There are a couple quirks to it, but we'll handle those. So if we go to pokeapi.co/api/v2/Pokemon, you'll see that we get an array with the first, I believe it's 20 Pokemon. Yeah, so it does 20 as the limit by default. You can make it limit, say 3, so it gets a lot fewer. You can make it 10,000, so it gets all of them. We'll go ahead and start with just the basic 20 for now. Let's take this step by step until we get into our full code. So let's go ahead first, and we'll copy this and hard code it here. So go const monsters equals, and then we'll just put these in an array. And then we'll
Okay, we're not going to do the hard coding bit.
As monster, and we'll do monster.url as the key for now. And then, yeah, just h1 monster.name. So here we go, and we're displaying the first 3 that we have hard coded here. Now let's go ahead and get more from the API. So we'll do a naive version of this first. So we'll change this from a const to a let, and then we'll go ahead and fetch, and this will grab the first 151, and that result in a monsters array. All right, so we've got the first 151 there, and that's cool, but this is not actually how Sveltekit wants us to handle this. So we have here a list of 150 Pokemon. However, if we go to the network tab and we see what's originally displayed, what's initially displayed is only 3. And so that means that when this is slow, you'll see this for a while, and then eventually, right, see all these things being loaded? All right, finally, we have what we actually need to see. So this defeats the entire purpose of server-side rendering. And so we need to do something special within Sveltekit to make our loading work with server-side rendering. So the special magic sauce that lets Sveltekit load your data for SSR is going to be a file called pluspage.ts or .js, and we can also add a .server in there later. We'll get to that soon. All right, so there is a function there called load, and that is an async function, and we won't give any arguments for now, but basically anything you do in here will happen on the server side as well. So this will be server render, which means our SSR will work. We won't have this pop in. And so let's go ahead and first figure out how we are getting the data from here to here. So let's go ahead and comment out this fetch here, and just bring over our hard-coded monsters, and we'll get the fetch there in a second. So we have our monsters, and we're going to return an object with
Right, let's set this lot up, because that looks like we need to do it. So const load. So async. And not page transition events. Open up this. Let monsters. So let's just do the first one. Name. Bulbasaur. And URL. Ooh, helps if I can type. HTTPS pokeapi.co/API/v2/Pokemon/1. Cool. And then we're going to go to at the end of the array, and we're going to return the monsters array.
monsters as one of the keys, and we get an error here because we don't have anything for monsters, but we can't just say const monsters equals from load or whatever. We have to use Sveltekit's special syntax. So we say export let data, and then we put data.monsters here, and believe it or not, this will actually get our monsters. And I'm going to put this back on no throttling so we don't have to wait. All right, here we go. We have the 3 monsters coming in from the load function here and being put in here, but we don't want just that. We want to do this fetching, and so what we can do is we can go ahead and we say await, and then we're going to fetch the, we won't do limit 3, we'll do limit 151, and then here, this will be our response.
Right, so in here, we want an await. Ooh. Why is it messing up with, we want change tab display size to 2 spaces. Wait, how do we change our default? I forgot how you do this. Preferences. Where's our preferences? Tab. Tab size modified elsewhere. Setting is overridden based on file here. Where is this also modified? Actually, no, we can use 4. 4's fine. Just think 4 encourages us not to indent too much as well. So why is this not being tabbed properly? Because we've got prettier on here. How do we change prettier config? C, prettier settings. It's going to be here somewhere. Print width, prose wrap. Add semicolons. Here we go, tab width 4. Right, and then if we go back to our page and we save, there we go. Okay, that's good. Right, we are doing an await function, await fetch. And we're going to fetch this link. HTTPS poke API .co / API / v2 Pokemon !limit equals 151. And then what else are we doing?
And just like in this fetch, we have to get the response.json and then get the data.results. So we'll go ahead and get here, and we'll call this JSON to find that a little easier to understand what it is. And then we're going to return for monsters, we're going to get JSON.results. And if we, all right, it is already loaded here. And the cool thing, we reload this, we look at for monsters, we're going to get JSON.
Okay, so we are setting this const response, which equals our await fetch here. And then when we get that, we get our JSON equals await response dot JSON. Okay. So now I don't think we need this monsters. And we say monsters equals JSON dot. No, let's have a quick look. So this is saying we have a load function, which is async. So that means it can happen, it just happens on its own timings. This response parameter is filled with the data that is fetched from this API, and await says don't load. Well, only when you've got all the data from here do we put it into this parameter. And then we are so body.json. So I think we're turning this data into JSON format, which is where it's just a way of presenting data.
JSON.results.
And we want JSON.results. Ooh. How do we know we want JSON.results? Is that because if we go to this poke API.co, let's have a look there. So API v2, and it's probably to do with Pokemon. We go to the Pokemon part of the API, which we're doing here. So this is our get. It's going to show us that the results array we want v2/Pokemon, but without this endpoint. So where is that? Where is the standard resource here? v2 endpoint. Is that what we're doing? Resource lists. Calling any API by endpoint without a resource ID will return a paginated list of available resources for that API. Yeah, here we go. So this is the command that we're doing. We're doing a get to this. So this fetch is doing a get command to this endpoint, and then we are looking at the results parameter of what is returned, which we will get here. Named API results. So that should just be a list of names and URLs as 2 strings, is what I'm understanding from this. Might be wrong, but that's how I am interpreting that.
Cool thing. We reload this. Calls JSON. Right, here we go.
And let's just check
const monsters equals from load or whatever. We have to use Sveltekit special
how we did it here.
Syntax. So we say export let data, and then we put data.mon.
Okay, so we're going to save this. We're going to go back to here. We're going to not do our generations list, but we're just going to comment that out for the moment. And here we're going to do a new each. Actually, can I just type each? Yes, cool. So this is going to be data.monsters as monster, and it has a unique key of monster.url. I've got to the point already where the word monster is starting to not look like a word, even though it's clearly a word. I always find with coding, if you end up typing a word too many times, it starts not looking like a real word. So export let data, and that's telling. Oh, that's not telling. Why is that not? I thought that's telling Svelte to look for a page.js file. Did we not call it data?
Or not, this will.
Why does it not like that?
Actually, get our monsters. And I'm going to put this back on note and just bring over our hard-coded monsters.
Has it worked? It's not worked. What's the problem? Variable data implicitly has a type any in some locations. Let's see firstly if we can figure out what we're doing here. Because it has type any. Is it because we're using TypeScript? What have we done differently? Have we done anything differently? So, we've got lang TypeScript, that's fine.
And we'll get the fetch there in a second. So we have our monsters, and we're going to return an object with monsters as one of the keys. And we get an error here because we don't have anything for monsters. But we can't just say const monsters equals from load or whatever. We have to use Sveltekit special syntax. So we say export let data, and then we put data.monsters here, and believe it or not, this will actually get our monsters. And we're going to put this back on no throttling so we don't have to wait. Right, here we go. We have the 3 monsters coming in from...
So he's getting an error showing up as well. Data.monster, and then... Oh, we haven't actually put the content in. So let's see if it is working. It might just be there's no content. So we want an H1 here. And this is going to be monster. Oh, no, we need to do it in our belly braces. Monster.name. And if we save that, it is working. Even though it's erroring. It's erroring because TypeScript is telling us that we haven't set the type of data properly, I think. I think that's what's happening.
The load function here, and being put in here. But we don't want just that, we want to do this fetching. And so what we can do is we can go ahead and say await, and then we're going to fetch.
Okay, we did this.
It's easier to understand what it is. And then we're going to return for monsters, we're going to get JSON.results. And if we, alright, it is already loaded here. And the cool thing, we reload this, we look at the localhost here, and it is correct. It has all the monsters that we need. And that is despite us doing an asynchronous request to the API. Sveltekit just takes care of all of that for us. We can remove this monsters array. Fantastic, so we are loading data from the API and using it in SSR. One thing to note is that right now we're using the native fetch function, and that's not currently causing any problems. However, Sveltekit has added some stuff to the fetch function that prevent problems in the future, and we can access that version of fetch by putting it here in the arguments. So we've got everything working, we're using the correct fetch, but we've accumulated a couple TypeScript errors, and they're all of the type where it doesn't like that it's implicitly any type, it wants a specific type. And so what we can do here, so this is data that's coming from the page data here, so what we need to do is we need to import the type page data that is created by Sveltekit for us, and it's in $types, which means...
Okay. So if we are import our... Oh, can I just write page data? Yes, I can. From types? Why did it not accept from types? Why is it not liking that?
The special plus page.svelte file type, then it'll automatically have certain these in...
Oh, because I haven't put type here. Import type page data. Cool, okay.
/$types. And you'll see in a second that there's some for plus page.ts as well. And there are different types, so only certain ones are available for certain special naming conventions. So here we put in data as page data, and then here we go. It knows the data is monsters. Pretty cool. And it knows that by looking at what's returned from this load function. Okay, so let's do the second one, and we'll wrap this entire async thing by looking at what's returned from this load function.
Right, so
here we put in data as page data, and then here we go.
Okay, so in here it already knows this setup because it's looked at page data and found it. Nice, okay.
Pretty cool. And it knows that by looking at what's returned from this load function. Okay, so let's do the second one, and we'll wrap this entire async thing, and we'll say satisfies, that is a new TypeScript feature, and page load, and once again we'll import from $$types for our fine.
So for this one, we're wrapping the async here, and then we're adding after this satisfies page load. Oh, and then we need to import as well. So we've got our export there, and we import type page load from types. And save that. Why is it not liking that one? Type page load extends. That all looks okay. Oh, maybe it's because this is a .ts file, not a JS file. There we go. Helps if you got your file names correct.
Final bit of loading. We'll want to display the number of the Pokemon, and we can get a very brittle version of that by using the index. So let's put these at paragraphs, and we can do the index here and do +1, and that works for our current call. However, it's very brittle. If we load something out of order, or if we load things not starting from the first Pokemon, this breaks. So we will not do this. Instead, we will grab the actual ID of the Pokemon. The Pokemon API makes this a little more difficult because it doesn't include the ID directly. However, it does include the ID in the URL. And I checked this does work as an ID throughout the entire system of the API. So what we need to do is here, we're not just going to return JSON.results, we're going to have monsters. And here, JSON.results.map. And here, we will start with a monster. And It's complaining because this is a type of any, so we'll just put in index monster here and create this type index monster, which, yep, it knows how to autocomplete that pretty.
Wait. That's going a little bit too quick. I might have to slow it down again. So json.results.map. And we're going to say monster index monster.
Index monster here and create this type index monster.
So what's the rest of his map here?
That pretty well. So we'll be wanting to return
Okay, now we can see
a version of the monster that, yes, it has the monster name, yes, it has the monster URL, but it also has an ID. And what is that ID going to be? So we're going to want to define it and grab it from the URL. So we need to do a little bit of processing here. And so first, let's go ahead and get the split URL. And so we're going to split the monster URL along the slashes. And we can get the ID from this. And now we'll go ahead and...
Okay, so with our monster, so this map is using an arrow function, which is taking, let's do const split URL. So it takes the monster, looks at the URL parameter, and then splits it by the slashes in the URL. And then const ID equals split URL split URL dot length -2. And we need to give it the type of the index monster. So type index monster equals name, which is a string, and URL, which is a string. Now I normally do, yeah, Pretty is doing it all for me, that's good. Okay, and then once we split it, we want to return our name, which is monster name, monster.name, URL, monster.url, wait, monster, not monsters. Why? Oh, wait, we need to be, we're still in this. That's where we're going wrong here. This is our return from our map. ID, which will just return as is. Pretty it doesn't like it because it's missing commas. And then we are closing our map function. Cool. We've run to the end of that playlist. Let's put some game chops. There's some Pokemon songs in this as well, so quite fitting.
From this, and now we'll go ahead and use the ID here.
Okay, and then in here,
Reload and
we want to say monster as
undefined here. That is a problem. And that's because we are putting the JSON.result without using the monsters array that we created. Save this here, and fantastic.
So we just want to output the monster array, which is this parameter here that we filled with this map. But he doesn't look to be using the monster ID. Where was he using that?
From this here.
Oh, he's using it there. Okay. I would have thought we want to use it in our as our key for our index. But B, yeah, then we can use it here. So this is going to be monster.id and then colon and this. So now if we look at our svelte and we save this, we're getting a server error.
And reload, and we've got undefined here. That is a problem.
Have we got our API call wrong, maybe? pokeapi.co/API v2 Pokemon limit 151. That all looks fine. Unless this is meant to be single quotes, which we can try. Oh, no, we can't try because Prettier is automatically changing it to double quotes. That should be okay, though.
And that's because we are putting the JSON.results without using the monster.
Right, have we got anything different? Just realized we've got KK Slider in the music. Right, what have we done differently? Constant page load, that's fine. Index monster, we've got okay. Maybe let's turn off Prettier for the moment. Can I do that? It might still be doing it anyway. Let's see if this will let me save it without putting them on. No, Prettier, it's still gonna go. I don't think that should be doing that though.
Created. Save this here and fantastic.
Because it was working before, right? Let's see, if we comment this out and we leave this back in as what it was before. So JSON.results. This doesn't work either now. Oh no, this does work. Okay, so it's nothing to do with the stuff up here. It's all to do with something that's gone wrong in this part. So if we uncomment and then set this back. So JSON results.map. Oh, maybe that should be monsters. JSON result.map.
The monsters array that we created. Save it.
Right, what are we doing different? That's all fine up to that point. So it's got to be something here. Monsters equals JSON results.map. Brackets, brackets, monster. Let's let it extend properly. So we've got the same. So monster of type index monster. Split URL. Monster.url.split on slash. That's fine. ID equals split URL dot length -2. Because there's a slash at the end of the response. Return monster name, URL, and ID. Close, close, return monsters. That should all work.
We have things displaying as we want. So to recap, we're now using the Pokemon API to load all the monsters. And we could do it using...
Wait, and then we just want to see here. Let's just double check our other page is the same. Oh no, okay. I don't know what I did differently, but something worked there. What did I change? Maybe I hadn't saved up one of the pages or something like that. But cool, we are now fetching the data from here. And we're loading it into this data array. Right, with that, I'm going to do a quick break. I think I'm just going to throw the schedule up on screen rather than any words with friends or anything like that. I hope that's okay. I just want to stretch, take a little break from the screen, get a coffee, get a water, that kind of stuff. So probably like 5 minutes or so. Make sure you're looking after yourselves too. Back in a sec. Right. Actually, sorry, just a few more minutes. Just want to sort a couple of emails quickly. Let's do... I'm just going to refresh that timer. Right. So let's get back to it. So what we've got so far is just a welcome page, but it's loading in the list of these on our server end, which is just currently in our local. Thank you, Rinks. Welcome back. And what this is doing is going to the Poke API, which is this free to use looks of it. Fair use policy.
This is by Ollie Wells from Spotify.
1 second. Somehow that was a command to play a certain song on Spotify to my Amazon device. Let me just swap it back over. There we go. Okay, we got it back. All right, we'll drop the volume a little bit on that. I need to figure out a way to just. I think I just need to turn it off during streams, because it pops up from time to time, and I'm like, what did I say that has triggered that? Yeah. Free and open to use, very popular. Because of this, we ask every developer to abide by our fair use policy. People not complying with the IP address permanently banned. Primarily an education tool. Locally cache resources whenever you request them. Okay. I assume he's going to go into telling us how to do that properly, but that's fine. But yeah, so what we're doing, we're going to this resource, and we're using an API call to call on this result and get all of the results. So this is basically a Pokedex kind of thing. And from this results that we're getting in here, we are splitting it into an array. No, an object. This monsters thing is an object, I think. Yes, it looks like an object. With 3 different properties: name, URL, and ID. Yeah. Then we're passing that into our page.svelte file, which is the page containing the scripts. So the JavaScript, or TypeScript in this case, the HTML, and also we can put in styles here if we want to. And it's just how Svelte files are set up. So let's say we wanted to change our H1 to be red. We could just do that. Maybe that's not how you do it. Oh yeah, I don't need colon to. It's been a while since I've done it. So, I believe we're all okay with that. And we can probably not have ourselves as zoomed in here. I think it's quite easy to see what's going on screen. And what we can do is put that over there. We might even be able to put this right to the side of the screen here. Bring this over a little bit because we're not using the files as much, and then put this on the left. Nope, doesn't like that. Bit busy on this screen. Maybe not. It's always difficult to try and fit everything from like what should be on multiple monitors. It has to be on one screen so that it'll actually be visible in stream. I think what we were doing before was okay. We'll leave this on the side. We'll leave this on this side. And then we'll have this floating. It works. Yeah, it's always difficult with I think especially with programming streams, it's very tricky to find a right balance between having this text large enough so it's readable on the stream. But if I go too large here, I think I do plus, then it's just like, it's quite difficult to work with. So obviously it's way easier to read on screen, but it's going to be a lot harder to work with. Like if I was working off stream, I'd probably be working at like maybe somewhere around this type, which actually still looks readable on my my view of the stream on my laptop. So maybe it's okay. Most dev streams you go to have it this size. It feels like it's a little bit small, especially. Let me just check on. It's not an issue actually to have it like this size, right? I think this size was okay. Well, the main thing for me is if I want to go back and do something like this again, I can just look at the VOD rather than having to go back and reread it. Yeah, to be honest, when I started doing some development streams, it was kind of mostly so that I've got something to so that I can review how I did things. And it's like, oh, the easiest way to do this, if I just stream it, then I have it available on YouTube forever, and I can always go back and see how I personally learned it. So I think it works quite well. And then you've always got this way of referring back to something you've done before. And actually, I think that puts a lot of the pressure, it takes a lot of the pressure off of streaming as well. Because I'm like, well, I'm still going to get use out of this regardless of what happens. But yeah, I think this is a good level. And also with stuff like this, I can always just re-find the same videos, so it doesn't matter too much if this isn't as clear.
Fetch right here in the.
Right, let's continue on.
And so to use SSR properly, we need to use the .ts file, and we'll talk more about the file naming in future lessons. But we need to use the load function here, and now we can call any API we want, and it'll work with SSR. So we get the response, we get the .json from there, and then we do a little bit of processing on it to add in the ID, and then we return this, and now we know that data has monsters on it, which is pretty nice to use as a developer. And then we can loop through those monsters. Actually, let's go ahead and change the key to monster.
So what I'm thinking here though is, can I specify that the data being returned, that this array has name URL ID? I guess I can do it here, but I don't want to do it here. I want to do it in here. Can I do something like type monsters? Ooh. Can I do extents? Index monster? I just want to add the extra Okay, it doesn't look like you can do that. But I could just copy this. This seems like the Bose way of doing it. ID is going to be a number. And then monsters is an array of monster. Yeah? No? Cannot find... Oh yeah, I did mean monsters. And an array. And then in here, if I look at data, it has monsters of type monster. Does that tell me any information? It doesn't. So do I have to be able to import? Let's see if this works. If we do import type monsters from page, how do I do page.ts? Can I do that? Can't do that. From /page.ts /page.ts. Use that. Doesn't like that. Import path cannot end with a TS extension. Right. So that's not how you do it. I could just set the type in here. And then I tell here monster. No, that's not how we do it. See, even without this here, it knows about the type monster because this is telling it it is of type monsters. Oh, is it because I spelled it wrong again? Monsters. No. Okay, maybe this is not how we do it. That might be explained at another point. Let's not dwell too much on this. We don't need that type here. And that should all be okay. Okay.
Right, since that's the part of the monster URL that's unique. And this is a great start. In the next episode, we're going to style these Pokemon and the generations so that they look much better. In this video, we're going to be taking all the...
I just want to try one little setup thing. Filters. Can we... do this? I'm just wondering if I can get the Spotify audio to auto duck on Chrome audio as well. So at the moment, whenever I talk, OBS automatically lowers the volume of Spotify. So hopefully my voice is a bit easier to hear. But if I can set up so it does it to the Chrome audio as well, then I don't have to keep adjusting the Spotify audio.
This unstyled data, all these monsters and these generations, and turning it into this.
Which it looks like it's doing. Okay. I don't know how well that's coming out. but it's just an option. I wonder if I can show you on here. So on my audio setup, on my music, does that show? Looks like it's showing, yeah. You can do filters here. There's a filter called, oh, which one's ducking? What is this normally called? I've just got it called ducking, but I can't remember. Ratio, threshold, attack, release, output, gain, sidechain. So it's probably a compressor. Yeah. So in here, remove this. So it's a compressor that I've just renamed to ducking. And all you do is tweak about these values a little bit, but set the input audio that OBS looks for. And when this is active, when there's noise coming from this audio source, it dips the output of the source that you're filtering. So for instance, for me, this is my Spotify source that I'm putting a filter on. I've normally got it on my microphone, but now I've just added in my Chrome audio, and hopefully it ducks with the Chrome audio at the same time.
Same data, much
Which
more beautiful. Let's get
it
started.
looks like it's
Let's
doing.
start by getting the basic card shape. So we're going to take this and turn this into a div and give it a class of monster. And
But I can't tell if it's doing it enough. It looks like it on my audio mixer. So if I look, ooh, I want to use whole screen here. So here where we've got our audio levels, as you can see when I'm talking, it's like maxing around about here. And then when I'm not talking, it's around about here. So that Spotify looks like it's working. And then if I play this music at the same time.
And then in our style, we're going to style this monster class so that we're going to have a width of 100 pixels. We can go ahead and do a height of the same for now.
It's kind of doing it, but maybe it's not enough. The thing is, it's really difficult for me to figure out, what value ducking, like how low on the decibels the Spotify needs to go. So is it doing -30? They should both be doing the same, but maybe because the Chrome audio isn't as high, it's not doing as much. I don't actually know which. I don't know which bit of it is telling OBS to dip more. Let's do playback speed normal on this and just leave it running for a little bit, and then we'll fiddle about with these values at the same time.
And then our border, we're just going to make
So is it the ratio?
really simple. All right, so we've got little squares here, and we're going to improve those in a second. But
It looks like it's the ratio that
now
does
let's
it.
get these squares in a grid, and we're not actually going to use CSS grid. We are instead going to use Flex. And
Ooh.
so
Doesn't help we got to the end of a song. It might have just been getting quiet because it's the end of the song.
This, and in dot monsters, we're going to make the display.
I also realized I haven't got Toastify running.
The flex direction is going to be row. There we go. But this crashes them all together and does this all in one horizontal scroll. So we're going to put in flex wrap.
Right.
All right, fantastic.
So
Let's
if we set the ratio really low,
a little bit of spacing. So we're going to put a margin of 10 pixels. All right, good. So
and really high.
spacing there. And we're going to go ahead and put some padding of 10 pixels as well.
I can't tell if that's doing anything.
Good. Now we have
Let's leave that high. Let's see what the threshold does.
the edges. Next, we want to get monster images.
Ah, okay. That's the one that's doing it.
Now, the data we're getting back doesn't.
So this can go back to 10.
Image. However, we can get the image with the ID.
And this was 30, but we want to duck it more on
Image
this.
tag. And in the source, we'll get the monster image, which we're going to calculate. And Right, we can see that it is not showing up there because we
That looks good.
calculated that. But
And we'll slow down the release as well.
yes, we can.
So this is basically saying the attack is how quickly after you get sound from this input do you lower the volume of Spotify. So we're doing it immediately as soon as there's any volume from Chrome. Spotify should go a lot quieter. And then the release is how long after the end of any audio from Chrome do we then return Spotify up to its normal volume, which probably we can do like half a second, which means most of the time while the video is playing it's going to be dipped, because any half-second gap it might come back in, but then it will dip as soon as he starts talking again. So hopefully that does it all for me and I don't have to keep messing around with the audio levels now. But we'll see how it goes. Right, let's go back to the start of this and we'll see what we've got to do this
In this video,
lesson.
all this unstyled data, all these monsters and these generations, and turning it into this. Same data, much more beautiful. Let's get started. Let's start by getting the basic card shape. So we're going to take this and turn this into a div and give it a class of monster. And then in our style, we're going to style this monster class so that we're going to have a width of 100 pixels. We're going to go ahead and do a height of the same for now. And then our border, we're just going to make it really simple. All right, so we've got little squares here, and we're going to improve those in a second. But before we do that, let's get these squares in a grid. And we're not actually going to use CSS grid. We're instead going to use flex. And so we're going to turn this into a monsters div that contains all of this. And in dot monsters, we're going to make the display flex. And the flex direction is going to be row. There we go. But this crashes them all together and does this all in one horizontal scroll. So we're going to put in flex wrap wrap. All right, fantastic. Let's give these monsters a little bit of spacing. So we're going to put a margin of 10 pixels. All right, good, some decent spacing there. And we're going to go ahead and put some padding of 10 pixels as well. All right, good. Now we have these not crammed edges.
Don't know why he's using flex instead of grid though.
Now the data we're getting back doesn't directly include the image. However, we can get the image with the ID. And so we can put in our image tag, and in the source, we'll get the monster image, which we're going to calculate. And right, we can see that it is not showing up there because we haven't calculated that. But when we go here to page.ts, we can get our image here. And all right, excellent. This should get it correctly for us. All right, fantastic. So this is the URL. Thank you, GitHub Copilot. And these are not showing up where we want them. So let's see. This is showing up outside of the monster class. So let's go ahead and put it in here. All right.
And actually here,
but this is a good start.
we can change it to use our own pixel art when we make
put a div here,
a Pokemon.
Actually, no, let's not do it on the div. Let's do it on the monster. We'll make the monster itself a flex, and the flex will have a flex direction column, and we're going to line item center, which because we're doing column means we will horizontally center the name and the image. Cool, this is looking pretty good. Next, we want to take this number and put it in the top left, but without displacing the image. To do that, we're going to need to turn monster into a container that holds both the monster content, which is what we've done already, and it holds the monster ID. And of course, we're going to have to close that. All right, and this is not looking good right now, but once we change our CSS, it will. So monster was doing two jobs. It was creating this outline.
GitHub Copilot is just insane as well. I need to figure out how to start using that if that's a free service.
Outline spacing there in monster, and we'll take the flexbox stuff and put that into monster content. Okay, now it's not quite so bad, but we want this to go up here. To do that, we're going to be playing with the positioning. So our first step here will be creating a class with monster ID and setting the position as absolute. So that on its own doesn't do what we want, but if we put the top of 0, well, that takes it way too far. We're going to fix that in a second. And right of 0, or left of 0, you can see it moving around, so we got all the numbers right there. So we don't actually want it in the complete top left, we want it in the top left of the card. And we can do that by going to the monster class and saying the position is relative. So now it is up here. Well, you can say the position here is absolute relative to the position of the monster. So this is put in the top left of this. And to show that this does not actually interact with the image, let's go ahead and put it 20 pixels down. And image has not moved at all. 40 pixels down, but we don't actually want it that far. We just want it 8 pixels and 8 pixels. So all the basics are here. Let's go ahead and put a couple finishing touches on these cards before we move on to the generations. So first we'll start with the monster. We need the background to stand out a little bit more. So we'll do a light gray. There we go. And we'll go ahead and make it so when we hover over it, the gray color changes. Cool. And we're going to leave the cursor as it is for now because they are not currently clickable. That's going to change soon when we turn them into links. By soon, I mean in like 10 lessons. All right, and so in the monster ID, we can make this a little bit more subtle. So let's change the font size to 0.8 EM, a little smaller, nice, and then the color a little bit lighter. There we go. So this is nice and subtle. You can see it if you're looking for it, but otherwise it doesn't draw much attention. Finally, now that we have this coloration here in the background, we don't really need this border. All right, that is looking decent. Now it's time to tackle the generations. So this is obviously not how we wanted to display. We want to make it so that you can see the main region, and later they'll be clickable so we can filter the Pokemon. But for now, we'll settle just for displaying them. And so, first to make it easier, we will move these up above the monsters so that they can stay in focus at the top of the page. This is also where we're going to want them once we're done styling them. Alright, and so we're going to remove the information we don't need. We just need the main region Kanto. Well, sometimes Kanto, sometimes the other ones, and the name of it. And we're going to turn these into little buttons that are lined up. So first we're going to make the generations here, and each of these will be a generation, and then we will apply our styling. The generations will be like the monsters in that it will just be display flex and line them all up in a row. And then the individual generation, what we'll do is we're going to give it some margin, and then some padding, and we'll do a little bit different on the vertical and horizontal, a little more on the horizontal, because that's more pleasing to the eye. And we'll go ahead and put some border here, so we can tell them apart, and then a little bit of background color, just enough that we can tell them apart from the background. So we'll do the F9 just a little bit there, and then the text is just a little off black, so off white and off black. And let's go ahead and make this margin 5 pixels so closer together. And let's go ahead and justify the content here so that they are centered. All right, nice. And things are a little bit off center here, so we're gonna go ahead and fix that by putting the monsters here and just doing a margin of auto. So that doesn't work. Right, we need to justify the content, center, and there we go. So as a final thing, you want to make it so that when we hover, it gets a little bit darker. So yeah, that looks good. All right, that's nice and subtle. And there we go. This is looking much better than it was when we started. In the next lesson, we're going to make these clickable and make it so they filter.
That looks really nice. Right.
So right now we're just using the first gen.
So we're going to just follow through at slightly slower speed.
Start by getting the basic card shape. So we're going to take this and turn this into a div and give it a class of monster. And then in our style, we're going to style this monster class so that we're going to have a width of 100 pixels. We're going to go ahead and do a height of the same for now. And then our border, we're just going to make it really simple. All right, so we've got little squares here, and we're going to improve those in a second. But before we do that, let's get these squares in a grid. And we're not actually going to use CSS grid. We're instead going to use Flex.
Okay, a bit slower.
And so we're going to turn this into a monsters div that contains all of this. And in .monsters, we're going to make the display flex. And
right, let's catch up. Let's catch up. Right, we have our welcome. Then we have, so we are bringing this back. This is just going to be the regions though. And then our monsters. So div, so it's just on styles really. We don't need our welcome actually anymore. Let's get rid of that. And then what we're going to do is a dot monsters. So this targets our monsters class. Display flex. Could we do grid? We could do grid. Let's go with flex at the moment, just so that we can follow along. But we might mess around and do slightly different. Monster. We've got a width of 100 pixels. So what you should see at the same time as we're following along this is whenever we click save, we get updates here. So where can we put this while we're doing this? Screen space at a premium, as always. Maybe like this. Here, and here. That might work. So then height is 100 pixels too. What have we not done? We have done it, it's fine. And then border of 1 pixel, solid, always at a premium. Black. So yep, we can see the groups there.
The flex direction is going to be row. There we go. But this crashes them all together and does this all in one horizontal scroll. So we're going to put in flex wrap. All right, fantastic. Let's give these monsters a little bit of space.
Where have we missed our... We've missed our monster class here. That's why it's not working. Div.monsters. And we need to put this div at the bottom. So now they're all in there. Monsters, display flex, flex flow, class monster, monster ID, monster name. That should be all the same, I think. Let's just take out this stuff that we're not using now. We don't need welcome. So, class monsters. Inside this is our each loop that's giving us a div for each monster. And then the monster style, 100 pixels by 100 pixels. Which is probably because we're zoomed in. No. What's causing ours to be different? We're doing flex flow. Let's break this out then. Thought you could do both in one, but maybe I've got that wrong. Flex wrap. Maybe it's flex flow. Yeah, that's it. Flex flow row wrap. It's not flex. So that allows us to do both of those together. Yeah, there we go. So we do like column instead. We should see the numbers go vertically. Yep. But we want row. And because it's flex, it just automatically fills the spots based on how wide the page is. So that's all good.
So we're going to put a margin of 10 pixels. All right, good. Some decent spacing there. And we're going to go ahead and put some padding of 10 pixels as well. All right, good. Now we have these not crammed up against the edges. Next, we want to get monster images. Now, the data we're getting back doesn't directly include the image. However, we can get the image with the ID. And so we can put in our image tag, and in the source, we'll get the monster image, which we're going to calculate. And right, we can see that it is not showing up there because we haven't calculated that.
So we want an image here. The source is our monster image. And the alt we're putting in as the monster name. And I just realized we don't need that. Don't know how I did Unicode heart there very quickly, but it just came up. So this is monster.name. So this is a good thing that Svelte does, is whenever you have an image tag in your HTML, it prompts you to put in an alt, which is basically if someone has a screen reader rather than like if they're visually impaired or stuff like that, it will read out what the image is rather than just leaving it as a blank. So this alt is where it gets told what to read out. Yeah, Svelte's got lots of like built-in accessibility features that it prompts the developer to consider, which is really nice. It's also, if the image doesn't load, it's what shows next to the broken link. So that's normally quite nice. So like this, at the moment it's doing the monster name here, but it's also used for screen readers, so it works lovely.
But when we go here to page.ts, we can get our image here, and all right, excellent. This should.
Right, so how are we getting the image sprites here? It looks like he's just getting it from something that he's already prepared. So what we could do, I think we can look at his GitHub profile here. We're looking for styling the Pokedex. Now we go to our roots, to our page.ts file. There we go. There's the image link. So now we save that. There we go. We got our images in.
Get it correctly for us. All right, fantastic.
Hey, probably embed. You love Sveltekit. It seems to be the case that like most developers, if they start using it after using, especially after using things like Angular, just having like things that are nice to read, like it makes a lot more sense to the layouts and stuff like that. Does lots of things for you. Yeah, I agree. There's lots of nice things to like about it. But yeah, I played about with it a bit while it was still in development, but now that version 1.0 is out, I'm basically trying to start from scratch, unlearn things that aren't how it works anymore, and see how we do.
This is the URL. Thank you, GitHub Copilot. And these are not showing up where we want them. So let's see. This is showing up outside of the monster class.
Oh, no worries, Rinks. Thanks for keeping me company. Hope it's been interesting as well. And have a good sleep. You're using React/Next.js and switch to Svelte, and it feels so much nicer. Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully, it's going to be an interesting series. I don't know how many series it's going to be to learn how to use it, but I'm sure there's going to be loads of stuff to figure out. I have a little understanding of what's actually going on. Yeah, it's nice to follow along. Yeah, I'm surprised from Next.js it's a big jump, but I suppose the way that they've built Sveltekit, Rich Harris has done like an amazing job. Ah, thank you. It's very kind.
Class. So let's go ahead and put it in here. All right, we're going to have to reshape this a little, but this is a good start.
Okay, so we've put it in with this instead of where I've put it. That's why. Good luck with the rest of the learning. Thank you. Ooh, I have a great podcasting voice. Thank you. Radio. I was like, ratio. Trying to figure out what. I'll take those compliments any day. Thanks. Right, so that puts them in the box as well. Oh, good luck with the rest of the leaning. I missed that. Right.
And that reshaping, I think, is just as easy as removing the height from the monster. There we go. Nice. And let's go ahead and put a div here of... Actually, let's not do it on the div. Let's do it on the monster. We'll make the monster itself a flex. And for the flex, we'll have the flex direction column. And we're going to line item center, which because we're doing column means we will horizontally center the name and the image. Cool, this is looking pretty good. Next, we want to take this number and put it in the top left, but without displacing the image. To do that, we're going to need to turn monster.
Right, so we got flex direction column, which I prefer to use flex flow because you can have auto wrapping and stuff like that included.
We will
and we did flex direction column align item center. align items center. I mean, another thing that it would be good to do is have a set order of properties on our CSS. And there is a good way to do that. Thanks for the follow, probably embed. Are you full-time web developer then? Or more of a hobby?
Horizontally center the name and the image. Cool, this is looking pretty good. Next, we want to take this number and put it in the top left, but without displacing the image. To do that, we're going to need to turn monster into a container that holds both the monster content, which is what we've done already, and it holds the monster ID.
So monster
And
content.
we're going to have to close that. All right, and this is not looking good right now, but
Right. So we've got our monster content and our monster ID in here. And then a second container, which we're going to call, which is another div with the class monster ID. You don't have a job in web dev yet, but it's pretty much all you do. Ah, so you're like training up to get to it. Or yeah, just more for interest maybe. So in here we want monster ID. There we go. So we got our secondary number there, and we don't need the ID here anymore. Okay, let's see if we can remember the rest of the steps on our own. So we have two new classes here. We have a class called monster content. Ah, that's nice. Monster ID. I guess I just automatically assume everyone trying out Sveltekit and that kind of stuff is enjoying it well. Right, so what we wanted to do was in our monster class, we want a position relative. In our monster ID, we want a position absolute. Position. Helps if I can type position. Absolute, yep. Top 0 and left 0. Good. And then we ended up with 8 pixels on both, which seems to be about right. Let's bring it into the corner. And then our monster content, we want to justify center. No, not justify. Maybe this is also a display flex. Oh, needs that. No, it's not a display flex. Okay. Sveltekit has been the only time I've really enjoyed coding. Feels just, yeah, I know what you mean. A lot of the time before, it's like, okay, I understand how coding works, and I like being able to type stuff and see immediate feedback. That's one of the reasons that it drew me into programming. It's like the quick return of trying things out and seeing the results. And you can just play around with things and see what happens on your own time, but kind of immediately see the results is the big thing for me. And then with Sveltekit, it was like actually writing the code's not too bad as well. Okay. So what are we doing here? Let's have a think of this. We've got our monsters class, which is the class around all of the boxes, which I don't think we need to touch here. Sveltekit writing the code is just like you're normally writing. Yeah, we just the little extras that help. Like the whole way of like passing variables into your HTML is so good. And like the little each loops that you can do. And the way also that when it's compiled, I know for a fact that any styles I write here have no effect on any other code, any other pages, apart from this HTML here. And then maybe anything that's embedded into the HTML. But I can have other pages of the website completely unaffected by anything I do here. I don't have to worry about like, oh, what was the other class I used? Was it Monster or Monsters or anything like that? It's all good. Right, 1 second. Okay, so finally wrote actual CSS yesterday since apparently Tailwind can't style a range component. Oh, really? That was another thing I need to start looking into is Tailwind. Just because it gives you... I'm in two minds about Tailwind. Because every time I've seen Tailwind code, it just looks like an absolute mess of the HTML. Just because you have all of these different classes here. But I do kind of like the idea that when you read the class, you can see immediately what it's doing. So there's a bit of a trade-off. We'll have to have a think. I think we're going to stick with normal CSS for the moment. Right, so we are happy with our monsters. Then we have a container. I might even write this as monster container. Which in this instance, I should probably call Pokeball, right? Definitely kind of looks like a mess, but the speed in which I write entire components is so much faster now. And then there's BS code extensions to hide them. I see. Maybe. I'm going to give it a little try and we'll see at some point. Right, so our monster container is the box around the image, the monster name, and this ID. So this is a flex container, and it's saying the items in the container should be ordered by column, which it should do, and to the center. And then the content, which is this box. So actually, we don't even need to have those, right? No, we do want these in. Because these are things making these two boxes, these two divs are now centered one on top of each other. Doesn't really matter, but it's more about the centering. So that can go. That's not doing any effect. And then in our monster content, which is this box with the name, we want to display flex. And at the moment it's flex row by default. So if we do flex flow, column again, and that's it, then that puts the name at the bottom. And then we want to align items center again, which should put them in the middle of the box. And that's looking okay.
once we change our CSS.
Okay, and then we're gonna go back to speeding up on this.
Jobs. It was creating this outline and spacing, and it was using Flexbox to center this. So let's go ahead and split that up. So we'll keep the stuff, the outline spacing there in Monster, and we'll take the Flexbox stuff and put that into Monster content. Okay, now it's not quite so bad, but we want this to go up here. To do that, we're going to be playing with the positioning. So our first step here will be creating a class with Monster ID and setting the position as absolute. So that on its own doesn't do
Yep, we got that.
But the top of 0, well, that takes it way too far. We're going to fix that in a second. And right of 0, or left of 0, you can see it moving around, so we got all the numbers right there. So we don't actually want it in the complete top left. We want it in the top left of the card. And we can do that by going to the Monster class and saying the position is relative. So now it is up here. We'll say the position here is absolute relative to the position of the monster. So this gets put in the top left of this. And
This all looks good so far.
With the image, let's go ahead and put it 20 pixels down. And image has not moved at all. 40 pixels down. But we don't actually want it that far. We just want it 8 pixels and 8 pixels. So all the basics are here. Let's go ahead and put a couple finishing touches on these cards before we move on to the generations. So first we'll start with the monster. We need the background to stand out a little bit more. So we'll do a light gray. There we go. And we'll go ahead and make it so when we hover over it, the gray color changes. Cool. And we're going to leave the cursor as it is for now because they're not currently clickable. That's going to change soon when we turn them into links. By soon, I mean in like 10 lessons. All right, and so in the monster ID, we can make this a little bit more subtle. So let's change the font size to 0.8 EM. A little smaller, nice, and then the color a little bit lighter. There we go. So this is nice and subtle. You can see it if you're looking for it, but otherwise it doesn't draw much attention. Finally, now that we have this coloration here in the background, we don't really need this border. All right, that is looking decent. Now it's time to tackle the generations. So this is obviously not how we want it to display. We want...
Let's just double check some other little bits here. So the monster ID is given a smaller font size. 0.8 EM. Actually, REM is fine. And then we want a font. Font color is just color, isn't it? Color of. I don't want to do white. AAA is what is used. Which, yeah. So we're zoomed in quite a bit here. This is what it would look like on, well, if we just leave it at the normal size. So this is all looking okay. I think when we get through this video, we're going to do another quick pause.
Now it's time to tackle the generations. So this is obviously not how we want it to display. We want to make it so that you can see the main region, and later they'll be clickable, so we can filter the Pokemon. But for now, we'll settle just for displaying them. And so first, to make it easier, we will move these up above the monsters so that they can stay in focus.
So we've already done that
so we're
here.
going to want them once we're done styling them. All right, and so we're going to remove the information we don't need. We just need the main region Kanto. Well, sometimes Kanto, sometimes the other ones, and the name of it. And we're going to turn these into little buttons that are lined up. So first, we're going to make the generations here, and each of these will be a generation. And then we will apply our styling. The generations will be like the monsters in that it will just be display flex and line them all up in a row. And then the individual generation, what we'll do is we're going to give it some margin. And then some padding.
Why is it not like that?
We'll do a little bit different on the vertical and horizontal.
Oh, because we haven't done
Because
this.
that's more pleasing to the eye. And we'll go ahead and put some border here so we can tell them apart.
And then we're going to give... We don't need that. Oh, can't import from TS file. I think that's fine. And then this one has got our div.generation. And we move the end of the div along to the end of the line. Good. Okay. So now, how did you do this? Let's see if we can do this without looking up. Right. So we have a display flex here. Our flex flow is going to be row wrap. And that might be it for that. Identify a generation. Why is it trying to import it again? what's triggering that. Okay, and then we had padding on this, which is longer than it is tool, which I think is that way around. Maybe it was margin as well. Margin 10, 5. Because I typed generation and it auto imported it. Oh, it's trying to import generation. Pixels. There we go. Thank you. We had a border, which was something like 1 pixel. Wait, how do you do? You do solid, 1 pixel, black. This is where the padding should come in though. Why are we not padding? Yeah. Oh, it's because I've had X rather than PX. There we go. And we got that the wrong way around. We want it 5 by 10. Those buttons look better. And we'll do the same here. 5 pixels up and down, and 10 left and right. And then similar, we'll do a background color of that triple E, and then generation dot hover. No, hover. So while our mouse is over it, we'll do background color of slightly darker, so DD. Cool, that looks okay.
And then a little bit of background color, just enough that we can tell them apart from the background. So we'll do the F9 just a little bit there. And then the text is just a little off black, so off white and off black. And let's go ahead and make this margin 5 pixels so closer together. And let's go ahead and justify the content here so that they are centered. All right, nice.
Yep, that's what we didn't do. We need justify content center. Oh, center. So it'll be in the middle of the screen. And also our main one. So what's our main container called? Monsters. This one. Justify content center. There we go. Starting to look pretty nice. Obviously we're just copying what the tutorial's doing, but it's always nice when it turns out roughly the same.
And things are a little bit off center here. So we're gonna go ahead and fix that by putting the monsters here and just doing a margin of auto. So that doesn't work. Right, we need to justify the content center, and there we go. So as a final thing, we want to make it so that when we hover, it gets a little bit darker. So yeah, that looks good. All right, that's nice and subtle. And there we go. This is looking much better than it was when we started. In the next lesson, we're gonna make these clickable and make it so they filter the different generations of Pokemon. So right now we're just using the first generation, but when people get the second, third, fourth, etc., as well as all of the generations. I'll see you there. So far, we've just been displaying static data that the user hasn't.
Oh, that's so weird. The audio in the next video is just in my left ear. I don't know if that's come through on, on OBS as well.
In this lesson, we'll learn about Svelte's reactivity system and let our
Oh, that makes me feel so weird. Can I don't know if I can adjust that in OBS so it doesn't come through for you guys, but filters. Can I say that it's a mono source? I think I can. Maybe not. Transform, no. Doesn't look like I have an option here. Invert polarity, what does that do? That doesn't look like it's doing it. Not sure. I think this is just going to be in our left ear for a little bit.
giving us a
Yeah. Has anyone noted that in the comments?
accessibility error because one of the count is that whenever the count goes up.
No, it just looks like that's the whole video is going to be doing like that. Okay, well, we're due a break now anyway, so we're going to do a quick break, maybe like 5 minutes or so, just away from the screens, top up water, take a loo break, that kind of stuff. Back in a little bit. Cheers. Right, so we're back. So probably going to do one more of these lessons on this list. We've only got 3 left, to be honest, but it's taking us our time because we're playing around a little bit with it. Thank you, probably in bed. Welcome back. That's a cute little emote. Right, so we're gonna have to put up with left-hand audio. Are these images centered? Feel like they're slightly more left here. They'll do for now, though.
By selecting Pokemon. So first,
Right.
we'll learn how to make these elements interactive. So we'll go to our monster element.
So we'll just do a quick playthrough at double speed.
Interact with. In this lesson, we'll learn about Svelte's reactivity system and let our users interact with our app by selecting Pokemon. So first, we're going to learn how to make these elements.
Yeah, I think it's just a couple of them feel like they're more left-leaning, but I think it's just the way that the sprite is drawn. I know, actually, if we look at the inspector and we pop this out, I'm pretty sure that Chrome now also has the Firefox feature of showing you, yeah, look, there's a slight margin on the right. No, it's not that. It's not that. What's giving that? Oh, it's just on... No, where is it on? Is it on that container? Yeah, it could be that these images aren't exactly centered. But normally... I can't remember how you do it now. There's a way to show grids and flex boxes, but I can't remember quite where it is. Those look all okay. Is it on all of them? Oh, it's because we've got a fixed width. I think it's because we had the fixed width. Yeah, that was it. It's only just slightly off, but it's enough to just push them off of center. It's probably easier to see on my screen, but I think that's it. Yeah, it's probably like a pixel or 2 off. But yeah, if we extend it, it becomes a lot more obvious. And look, you can just about see it there with the... I don't know if I can hover at the same time. Let's do... If I do it like this, you can see this bit. It's probably just 1 pixel off.
It's interactive.
But that is this line here. So we get rid of that as well. Get rid of this. Keep it nice and tidy code. Cool. Yeah, just barely off.
We'll use on::click, and then we'll give that a function. And so we'll do something super simple. And so what this is going to do is when we click on this, it will call the function.
Okay, we're going to avoid... We're not going to do the hello alert.
Accessibility error, because you should make it so that if you hit a key, it can also do the action. For people who can't use a mouse. For the sake of simplicity, we'll go ahead and ignore this error, but in production app, you should not ignore it. All right, so back to our alert. So we can also feed in data to this function. So we go hello from, and then do the monster.name. So now we're saying hello from Charmander. Cool. Of course, a lot of time we want to call longer functions, and so we'll want to reference something find elsewhere. So we're going to create something called monster_click and define that here. And we'll start off with just no arguments, and we'll do an alert. Hello from monster. And then we'll see that when we click it, it calls this function. Cool. And we can also feed in a monster. And to do that, here we're just feeding it in the function. But to feed in the monster, we need to make it an anonymous function right here, so we can give it an argument. And now we'll say hello from monster.name. So that's how we interact with elements. Now let's look at how we can change data. So let's say let count equals 0, right? And now when we click the monster, instead of putting an alert, we do count plus equals 1. So we're adding 1 to the count, and then we'll go ahead and in H1 put in our count. So we got 0 here, and now every time we click, it goes up by 1. You'll notice we didn't have to do anything special here. In other frameworks, you'd have to do something like ref and then call .value or something, or use state and then have a special set count property that you have to use here. But in Svelte, you can just do this and it works.
It just does it.
Next, we'll go
Yeah,
over declarations.
it's magic.
Called computed properties. So here we find double count. We put a $colon before it, and then we have the definition of it. And so what makes a declaration special is that whenever the count goes up, let's go ahead and put in the
Yeah, Svelte really does feel magical sometimes.
is updated in line with it. So we don't have to do double count plus equal 2. It just computes what the correct value is based on the changing count. We can also use statements, or what are in other frameworks called watchers. So we'll just go ahead and say the count is that, and when it says 0 to start out, and now whenever the count changes, it will give us an alert about what the count is. We can put if statements here, and so we can do it only if the count is greater than 5. And if the count is greater than 5, we can multiply it by 2 as well. So we are now 5, right? So that is the basics of the reactivity system. Let's go ahead and use it in something more relevant to our app. We'll start by letting something called monster ID, and it'll be null at first. And then we'll display the monster ID. So no monster ID, but if we click the monster, then let's go ahead and, all right, that should work. And now we click, and it's showing the ID of the monster. We want to show the entire monster. So we can do a declaration of the monster, and then we can use the data.monsters to find it based on the monster ID. And here, now in our H2, we'll find our monster.name. And it appears there's an error, and that's because if there's nothing there, then can't find a name on it. So we'll do monster question mark.name. Cool. Awesome. And this is better than just setting the monster directly like that, because an ID is a lot easier to pass than a whole lot of data, and it's really useful to be able to pass an ID and then recreate sets of data from that. We'll see that in the next video, where we'll be passing the ID into the query params and then showing the selected monster based on that. So that's the reactivity part. Before we go, we need to fix some of these type errors. So we'll start with the monster ID. It doesn't like not knowing what type it is, so we can call it a string type. And then we'll go ahead and get rid of the null, since this will accept an undefined but not a null. And behavior is the same. And then for this monster, it really wants to know what type it is. And we can't just do something like this, because that's just an empty object. What we can do, so we have this type of monster that is incomplete and not perfectly named. So this is actually an API monster. So this is the monster that we get back from the API. Meanwhile, the index monster.
This is what we were trying to do earlier.
So the index monster is basically the API monster plus. So we do that and add stuff plus an ID and an image.
Okay.
Say, all right,
I was trying to use like extends or stuff like that, but
cool. So now we already know what one of these things is. See, the number there went down from 2 errors to 1, because now we know that what's returned from data is an array of index monsters instead of an array of any. That's pretty cool. And we can also export this so that we can call it here. And so we'll import the type. And
right.
it knows exactly what we're wanting to do.
Okay. So, let's do all of that stuff. We'll rename this API monster. And this one's our index monster. And then we said equals API monster and our ID, which is a number, and an image, which is a string, I think. Did we have to set that?
So now you know the basics of
Oh, we put both of them as strings. Okay, that's fine. And then we exported this type so it's available elsewhere. So now when we go into here, obviously we've got a lot more to set up.
and say, all right, these are index monsters. Cool. So now we already know what one of these things.
Right, let's catch up here with all the other stuff. So export let page data. Let monster ID. Monster ID, which is a string. Oh. And then we want a reactive element where we say monster equals data.monsters.find monster. Oh. And we're going to pass in, sorry, we pass in the monster and we return the monster.id. Oh, we return true if, oh no, sorry, find the loops over an array of monsters and returns the monster where ID equals monster ID. Oh, oops, we've got the N, monster ID. So that's what that one's doing. Now, it doesn't like that. But we'll see if we can fix that. So const monster click, which is our click handler on the monster. We pass in the monster into this function, and with that we set the monster ID equal monster.id, and we add some semicolons around there. And yeah, it hates that these are implicitly any types.
See, the number there went down from 2 errors to 1, because now we know that what's returned from data is an array of index monsters instead of an array of any. That's pretty cool.
So why we've missed on here somewhere that these monsters are an array of index monsters, which we do here. And that resolves that one. And then, do we do it here? This is of type monster, index monster. Export let data.
And we can also export this so that we can call it here. And so we'll import the type, and now all our errors are gone. And type.
Oh, that's what we're not doing. We're not doing the import type. Import type index monster from plus page. There we go. Nice and happy.
TypeScript knows exactly what we're wanting to do. So now you know the basics of interactivity and reactivity in Svelte. This is a core building block of the framework, so we're going to be seeing these concepts in ever more interesting ways as we continue this series.
Okay, we can do the next one.
Last lesson, we learned how
Ooh,
to select
whoa.
the monster.
Oh, it's weird going back to... It's weird going back to both ears.
In this video, we're going to show how to save that monster in the query params. And then we're going to show how to save a second monster in the query params as well, which is surprisingly more difficult than just saving one. But the good news, once you learn how to do 2, you can do 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. really easily. What we have right now is a property monster ID, which is a string, which is just saved in memory. And so when we click one of these, it changes the monster ID, and then the monster is calculated from that. What we want to do is put the monster ID in the query params. So you do
Maybe not. Which with our... I can comment with this account, can't I? No. I'm going to comment with my stream account just to let them know. What was the URL?
so far we've just
This one.
So far, we've just been displaying static data that the user hasn't interacted with. In
And we'll just add a comment there. Cool. Okay.
the last lesson,
Yeah, I must have just not realized.
select a monster, and get that selection to show up here. In this video, we're going to show how to save that monster in the query param easily.
Right.
What we have right now
Oh, we're going to use
is a
stores. Okay.
string, which is just saved in memory. And so when we click one of these, it changes the monster ID, and then the monster is calculated from that. What we want to do is put the monster ID in the query params. So we do question mark monster ID equals 4. And if we went there, then we'd want it to show Charmander. One naive way to do this would be to window.location.href. So we get that, and then we call split on question mark. So the second one is all of the query params, and then we split on and then we find the one split on equal, find one with the key of monster ID, but there's two problems. One, it's a big pain, and second, it doesn't work with SSR. So let's do it the Svelte way. We're going to import the page store, and we'll talk about what stores are in a later video. But for now, just know that to access the value of the page store, you do $page. And this is an object, of course, because there's lots of stuff on here. We can see our autocomplete offers us data, error, form, params, route, status, and URL. You may think params, but this is actually not for query params. This is for something else we'll talk about when we talk about dynamic routing. So we'll get the URL, and then we can get the search params from that. And so we call .get, and we'll get monster ID, and there we go. We have the monster ID of 4. Now we want to hook it back in with our other code. So let's cut this here and remove the curly braces, and then just set this to be, by default, equal to the monster ID. And so we can see that we can still change it. And so we get the default that's in the query params, and then we can make changes later. But there are a couple problems. First, it has an issue with the typing. And so what we have to do is say, all right, so the default is actually just an empty string. That's just a TypeScript thing. The second issue is that when we change this and reload, it resets back to Charmander, because we're not actually changing the query params yet. So let's go ahead and make that change here in MonsterClick. So we do still want to reset the monster ID, but we also want to change the query params. So we're going to do that in 2 ways. The first way, we're going to just take what we have now and add a goto. And so we're going to go to monster ID equals monster ID, where we're filling in that data. And there we go. The ID up here is changing. And you can see that when we reload, it has it still selected. Let me click here so you can see that we are indeed reloading it. The second option is to get rid of this function entirely. And here, instead of having a div that has an onClick, we should have an A that has an href. And we'll set the monster ID query params to the monster.id, and of course make sure to close out this tag. And then we'll see that this is kind of working. You can see the issue is that we click a monster, and the monster ID here changes, but it doesn't change here. And that's because this monster ID, it gets the query param right when the page loads, but not again until you reload the page again. And so how to fix that is you make it reactive. And so when we do that and make it calculate from the search params, now it's working like we expect. The trade-off is that the query params are now the source of truth, and so you can't just go changing the monster ID directly. A quick aside for people who've used other JavaScript meta frameworks. So you may be looking at this A tag and thinking, oh no, we did something wrong, because this is going to reload the entire page. In other meta frameworks, you have to do something like a link component. However, in Sveltekit, you don't have to do that. An A tag will work just fine, and you will not reload the entire page. It'll work just like a link component does in the other meta frameworks. So this is fantastic, but what if we want to keep track of a second monster? So now this complicates things, because we need to include both query params. So first, let's go ahead and add in our second monster ID. So we'll call it monster ID 2, and we'll make it Charmander for now. And so we've got that there. Let's go ahead and copy some of the code that we've got. So we'll just change this to monster ID 2 and have this resolve to monster 2, and then we will take this and turn this into monster 2. And cool, we're showing Charmander. But how do we get it so we can change the second one without deleting the first one? So let's do something that is a partial solution. So it is super naive if you do it.
I'm going to pause it, and I'm going to assume something along the lines of we use an array and pop them, push and pop items off the array. That could be one way to do it. The only difficulty maybe is the way that we're going to do it.
Just on its own, but it'll get us part way to where we want to go. So we're going to separate out the styling of the monster card from the href. And so we're going to get this in here, and then we are going to do a second link tag, and we're going to do the second monster in there. So we're going to say add monster 2. And so now we've got a link here, and we click this, and it does change the second one, but like we predicted, it deletes the first one. And if we click the first one, it changes that, but deletes the second one. Now let's try a new solution. And spoiler, this won't quite get us what we want, and see if you can spot the bug before I show it to you. So we're going to have a function called generate search params, and we'll feed it the key of the search param that we want to change, and the value that we want to change it to. And so we will go ahead and generate this, and Copilot knows exactly what we want. And so what it'll do is it'll grab the current search params from the page store, and then it will set one of the search params using the key and value we gave it, and then it'll turn it back into a string that'll turn into the URL. So we can see that it works for the first use case of just setting the monster ID. Now let's go ahead and use it to generate the second monster ID. So generate search params, we'll put in monster ID 2 and feed in the monster.id. And when we first click, like, oh wow, this works. This seems to be working pretty well. We can reload, we can change the other one, and then we can change the second one, and oh no, notice what happened. When we changed, we're changing multiple monsters at the same time here, and not in a way we expect. So what's happening?
Okay, what's happening here?
What's happening is that we are generating the link when the page is loaded, and these links do not regenerate when you click another link and change the query params. So if we inspect this, we'll see that the link is to a monster ID of 1 and a monster ID 2. And when we click that, it indeed changes both of them. The good news is that this is a fairly easy fix. So instead of returning a string, we will just use that string in a goto, and that goto will be assembled right when we need it. So right when we click the button, not when we're generating links at the beginning. So we'll rename this update search params. And of course, we'll have to have these not as links, but as divs with a onClick function. And this function, so we'll need to update it to update search params. And also we'll need to make it so that it calls this so that we can get the correct parameters as expected. And of course, there is an error if we don't update both of them.
Right, but
out.
Also, it's a bit
There we go.
bulky having 2
And now they are
buttons to click on.
So we'll go ahead and add monster 2 and change this.
Because normally you have a team of 6 in Pokemon, so you don't want 6 buttons on each one.
So adding the second query param was actually quite a bit more difficult than adding the first one because of the added complexity. But you can see that this will expand to any number of query params, however many you need. And in 2 videos, we're going to expand to add a 3rd query param for search. In the meantime, in the next video, we're going to be taking these 2 monsters and making them display just as nicely as these monsters. And to do it, we're not going to copy and paste this code up here. What we're going to do is create a reusable component. Be sure to subscribe and get on the playlist, or go to js-pokemon.com, and then I'll see you in the next
You could make 6 small buttons. But I'd imagine what you want is something that is basically tracking the first 6 that you click on, and you have an option to remove from your team with an X that just removes out of the list one of them. And then you have an option to add in another one, which will add at the end of the list. Which I think is the same as doing the push and pop on an array. But if this next one, I'm probably not going to do that function that they've just did, because
in Svelte, and how to use component props to customize those components.
I don't think we want to use that.
We'll be taking the styling for these Pokemon cards down here and using it for our 2 selected Pokemon. And for these 2 selected Pokemon, the styling is going to be different than the ones down here and slightly different functionality. And so that's where the component props come in. First, decide which Pokemon we're using, and second, to put some options.
Actually, what we'll do, we'll just do the individual one of this.
We learned how to select a monster. Is a property monster ID, which is a string, which is just saved in memory. And so when we click one of these, it changes the monster ID, and then the monster is calculated from that. What we want to do is put the monster ID in the query params. So we could do question mark monster ID equals 4, and if we went there, then we'd want it to show Charmander. One naive way to do this would be to do window.location.href, so we get that, and then
Right, so
params, but this is actually not. We can get the to be by default equal to. The second issue is that when we change this and reload, it resets back to Charmander because we're not actually changing the query params yet. So let's go ahead and
let's just
this is
do
working. Now the source of truth, and so you can't just go changing the monster ID directly. A quick aside for people.
Right, let's do this. So we are doing page equals page data. Monster ID is now going to be a reactive component. And it's going to be our page, which automatically imports. That's brilliant. .url, .search params. Oh no. Search params. .get. Monster ID. And we need to tell it can be an empty string. Right, and then why does this not like it? Monster ID. We're not using this click event anymore. Wait, let's just have a quick look here. We go back to the click event, don't we? Const update search params, which is going to take in our key, which is a string, and our value, which is also a string, and it's going to return search params, which is new URL search params with page.url.search params and then yeah, I agree. I don't think it's the best way of doing this, but it's probably being done in this way to keep some complexity out of the tutorial until a later stage is what I imagine is happening. .set key value and then return the template string of search params dot toString and that. Right. And then what have we got here? Div, monster. So we're wrapping all of this in an ahref. No, that's not how you do it. There is a way to do this in Emmet, but I can't remember what it is. A link? Yeah, that's it. But I don't want a link. I just want our update search params. And we're going to pass in our string here, which is monster ID. And monster.id. So that is where that opens. And then that's going to close around the whole container. And then I think this needs to be a $sign as well.
The URL. So generate search params, we'll put in monster ID 2 and feed in the monster.id. When we changed, we're changing multiple monsters at the same time here, and not in a way we expect. In a monster ID 2 of 3. And the good news is that this is a fairly easy fix. So instead of returning a string, we will...
Oh, go to. That was it. Go to that question mark in here. So why is this still erroring? Cannot find the name monster ID. That's definitely there.
And that goto will be assembled right when we need it. So right when we click the button, not when we're generating links at the beginning. So we'll rename this update search params. And of course, we'll have to have these not as links, but as divs with a on click function. And
oh yeah. So really, that can be on here, right? On click. Oh. Actually, let's put it after the class name. So on click, we want to do our function here. And then we can get rid of the ahref. And then we need this comment just to say ignore this. Svelte ignore ally click events key events. What have we done wrong? Svelte ignore ally click events have key events. That looks like it should work. Was it the indentation? Or is this doing something else? Oh, it's double ones. It's not double L. Right, okay, that's fine. It's good to know.
this function, so we'll need to update it to update search params, and also we'll need to make it so that it calls.
Yeah, we need to give it this, Oh,
This so that we can get the correct parameters as expected. And of course, there is an error if we don't update both of them.
right. Why is this still not liking this though?
And close these out. There we go. And now they are.
Let's see if he goes to the top of this code again,
Add monster.
or we might have to go back.
Change this first monster, no issue. Change the second monster, no issue. So this is finally working as expected. So adding the second query param was actually
Go on, scroll up.
Then adding the first
Scroll
param
up.
to add complexity. But you can see that this will expand to any number of query params, however many you need. And in 2 videos, we're going to expand to add a third query param for search. In the meantime, in the next video, we're going to be taking these 2 monsters and making them display just as nicely as these monsters. And to do it, we're not going to copy and paste this code up here. What we're going to do is create a reusable component. Be sure to like. So instead
No,
of
okay.
string, we
Let's go back to where he's last touched the.
and then it'll turn
At the
into
top.
a string that'll turn. Copilot knows exact search params, and we'll feed it the key of the search param that we want to change and the value that we want to change it to. And so we will go ahead and what we want and see if you can spot the bug before I show it to you.
Go on, go up.
And we click
Have we not?
naive. If you
We've not done anything at the top. Here we go. Right. So what have we done differently? We're not using index monster. Oh, we're disconnected. Something disconnected. Everything seems okay. Right. Import generations. That's fine. Import goto. That's okay. Type index monster we're not using now. But that's fine. Don't have to worry too much about that. I did monster ID, not monster ID equals. Here. Yes, okay. Thank you. Yeah, I was giving it a good spot. Well done. Right now, so we haven't got the thing at the top either. So we just want an H1 that has our monster ID and another, and an H2 with monster ID. Oh no, monster.name. Cool. Nice. Considering there's only one lesson left, let's do that as well.
and then I'll see you in the
Because
next
it didn't look like
We'll learn how to
loads.
create reusable components in Svelte and how to use component props to customize those components. So what we'll be doing is we'll be taking the styling for these Pokemon cards down here and using it for our 2 selected Pokemon. And for these 2 selected Pokemon, the styling is going to be different than the ones down here and slightly different functionality. And so that's where the component props come in. First, decide which Pokemon we're using, and second, to put some options on there to change how we display it. So let's create our component, and we're going to make it super simple to start off with. We'll call it monster.svelte, and then we'll say hi from monster component. And then we'll go into our plus page.svelte and use it up at the very top. So we'll do that, and it will automatically import monster. And there we go. It says hi from monster component. And we could repeat this, and it'll say it 3 times. Next, let's add a component prop. So we can put in a script tag, and we'll go ahead and make it TypeScript. And we'll go ahead and use a super simple prop. It'll be monster name, and it'll be a string. And then we'll go ahead and use the monster name in our.
Oh my god.
And so now this is showing an error because.
I'm really struggling with
but we're not giving it a monster
typing
name.
at the
So let's
moment.
go ahead and give it a monster name. And here we can just say Charizard. And here we could give it something that's not hard-coded. So we can say monster.name. And then we'll go ahead and
I don't know why it keeps dropping my quality on that as well.
because that is what we selected. Let's make it.
Hardy.
All right, here we go. Charizard and Ivysaur. You can see a TypeScript error, and that's because monster 2 can be undefined. So you can do that, and that passes the error down here, saying, oh, well, monster name now can be undefined. So right now, this isn't actually a problem. It's still displaying, and that's because we do have a monster 2. And if we remove the monster 2, it'll still display just with something that we didn't expect. And so it's good that TypeScript is getting this to us. And if we were getting the monster 2 instead of just the name of monster 2, and we were trying to call .name on it there, then we would really have a problem. And so there are multiple ways we can fix this. The one we'll choose for now is just to give it an empty string, or a string that just says monster, like before. Of course, the monster name alone isn't enough to recreate these cards. We're going to want the ID and the image URL. So we could ask for the monster ID and the monster image, or we could just ask for the monster object, and that's what we're going to do. So we're going to make our prop the monster object, and we're going to give it the shape of the index monster that we created in in page.ts. And so this is what we have coming from our API, so we will have this available. So here, we'll call .name directly on the image monster, and it's throwing a 500 because we're not feeding in the correct stuff right now. And so here, instead of putting in the monster name, we will just put in the monster, and we'll go ahead and remove the second one. And good, we have it displaying, although if we remove the monster ID, this will throw an error. So as a quick fix to prevent that, we will do an if block. So we'll say if monster, then we will display the monster card. Otherwise, we won't display anything. These undefines are coming from here. So let's go ahead and repeat this if block for monster 2 and remove these placeholders. Cool, so now we have nothing there. Click this, we have Ivysaur for the first one, we have Charizard for the second one, and we are good to go with creating the full card. So let's go ahead and get this copied in here. So we'll leave the each loop, but then we'll take all of this and put it in our monster component.
Okay, so let's just follow that bit. Just wait until he pastes it. And then we've got our setup here for our monsters.svelte file. Right. So we are taking... Oh, no, I didn't mean to do that. We want to take this. We're going to take everything in here. Actually, including this, ignore. Dumping it in here. We're going to also say scripts with language equals TypeScript. Import, actually, probably don't need to import because it should automatically do it. So export let monster of type index monster. And yep, it's automatically done the import for us.
So first you'll see that, yes, we did in fact have all of this working. So it's displaying. We'll deal with these errors in a second. But
right, we need the CSS needs to come across as well. So that is our monster container and monster content. All of this comes across. Right. And then in here, we want our monster. And this probably needs an import. Oh no, it's done the import automatically, that's good. So we just need to pass in the monster data. It should be like that.
But it's not displaying like the card says it should. And the reason for that is because the CSS that we have here is not applied to anything within the component. So if we copy all of this and put it in here in a style tag, now it works. And the reason for this is because we have scope CSS. So you can write CSS in here and it will only apply in this component. It won't apply to anything in here. And if you write CSS here, it won't apply to anything in this component or any other component unless you use a special global function. So we've got these displaying. Let's go ahead and put in our monster and fill these in, and they're displaying just like before. But when we click, it doesn't do anything. And that's because we do not have the update search params working. But wait, you say, didn't we write update search params in here? The thing is, we no longer have access to it in monster component. So there are a couple ways we could handle this. We could pass in the function. So here we go. We've got update search params, and we have the function signature that we pass in. And then we would put update search params here, and we put this in.
Yeah, we don't really want to do that.
And then this would work. There are some other ways of handling this. So one is emitting events. And so if we did that, we'd have an on, and then we'd give the event name, such as updated monster, and then we'd give it a handler, like update search params. And then in the component, we'd use a event dispatcher. And so you can see from the code here, what you do is you import create event dispatcher, you run create event dispatcher to create a dispatch constant, and then you run dispatch with the arguments when you click the button or run the event within the component. And some people love this. It doesn't seem natural to me, but it's possible I'm missing something. The other option is to just, instead of having it here in the page component, you could co-locate it in the component here. And yeah, that's really all you need to do. You need to add some missing imports, but there you go. This should work just as well. And so the advantage of this, and I'll go ahead and demonstrate that it is working. Good. So the advantage of this is that your parent component doesn't need to worry about what's happening. Disadvantage is...
Yeah, I think we want to do that. That to me makes more sense as well. And then quick flicks is control and dot. No, how do we automatically... There's something he presses here that does the fix for us. Don't know what he presses there. There seems to be a shortcut that will automatically do the import. It's not that. Oh. It's quick fix. Import. No, not that. So now this isn't used. Page is still used. Do we even use index monster? I don't think we do. And then instead of this, we're doing our if block. No. An if block. Svelte if block. There we go. And we're saying if we have a monster. Then in that situation, we want to use our monster component with our monster value. Monster. Don't think we need a closing tag. Do we? We need like that. It's a self-closing tag, I think. Right, that all looks okay. Slightly off on the styling, but what's wrong with our styling here?
Is that this function is now not very reusable, so it's really only good for this component. A fourth option is because update search params is pretty generic, it could go into a utilities file. Because notice there's nothing in here that takes into account the rest of the state of the component. So it's purely functional, perfect fit for utilities file. Except for one thing, which is that it's hard-coded to be at the base route. And so for now, let's go ahead and just bring it back to here. For mainly, honestly, the reason is so that when we have the difference showing in the git commit, you can see an example of passing a function. That is honestly the biggest reason we're doing it this way, because otherwise it's kind of a wash for several of the possible methods. Now we're ready for the final phase of this lesson, which is to add a prop so it looks different here and here. So let's go ahead and export an isInteractive prop, and it'll be a boolean, and let's put it default as false. And which ones do we want to be interactive? We do not want these two to be interactive, but we do want this one to be interactive. So isInteractive equals true. And what will that change? So the first thing is that we don't want addMonster2. So if isInteractive, then we'll display addMonster2. Otherwise, we will not. Cool, so it's just showing this as selected here. And the second is, when we click it in general, we do not want it to add it as the monster one. So we're going to make this on-click a little bit different. And so we could do it inline. So we do isInteractive and do a ternary here, and then just do an empty function right there. And so now let's change this and see we're clicking here and...
That's a lot.
So here we have it. The interaction is basically what we want. And we have learned a lot about reusable components. There are some styling and UI changes that we could do to make this look better, but that is beyond the scope of this video.
I think we're not gonna bother with that now.
Filter out your Pokemon, and after that, we're going to make these
This is a good start.
Not just the Kanto Pokemon, but the Pokemon from all
But yeah, I think we're gonna wrap up with that.
I'll see you in the next lesson.
And we've got to the end of this. What's been released so far? This was only released yesterday, so it seems like this is still being updated, but we've kind of caught up here. So yeah, we have a nice little start to a website, something that's quite useful. I'm not sure I like it automatically scrolling up to the top. I think that's not so good. What I would probably do is have this as a sticky CSS so it stays at the top as you scroll as well. But nice. So solid start into Sveltekit. We're probably going to jump into some other tutorials tomorrow. There is another couple of ones here. There's this Prismic one. which we might look into. Which might not be too much going on. And then there's the level up tutorials one.
Hey, what's up? This is Scott.
In here, which is a whole course which we can have a look at in here. So that's probably what we're going to be looking at tomorrow. The link again to the course that we've been following is, let's just get the links to this whole intro to Svelte here, and we'll copy that. Yeah, level up tutorial is really good as well. I just thought this was this is a bit more in theme at the moment with what I've been doing on the channel. I do a Pokemon randomizer, and I also do Pokemon pixel art, so it kind of all fit together. It caught my eye, but yeah, we'll probably be going to the level up tutorials one tomorrow. A bit of a later start tomorrow because I'm on got night shift tonight, so probably going to be sleeping in the morning. But yeah, this is it for today. Thanks a lot. Cheers for keeping me company properly in bed, and thanks for the follow as well. Quick summary. All good here. Yeah, thanks everyone who's been lurking, chatting, following today. I hope it's been interesting. Back again tomorrow with some more Sveltekit, and maybe we'll try and squeeze in some pixel art, but we'll see how it goes. But cheers. See you later. Thanks, bye.